So now that I'm populating the user field in my message with the actual user, or at least with ID and first name, I can use this on my front end where I fetch my messages in the message service. Here, get messages. Right now, the new message I create has the dummy username and I don't populate the user ID, though I could have done that before, but well, now it's time to work on this anyways. Here, I first want to get the actual first name. So instead of dummy, I can simply access my message, then the user, and now remember, this was expanded. So here now, I can access the first name, since this is the one field by which I expanded it. I can also store the ID here by accessing message, user, and then underscore ID. So with this setup, and I can bring this in multiple lines to make it a bit easier to read, I'm now finally passing all the user data to each of the messages I'm creating here. So now I do store this connection on the front end as well. Now, of course, the same is true here when I add a new message. Here I also create a message and I also need to populate this with the right data. Now you could think that I should therefore, on the backend in my routes folder, when creating a new message here, I also need to kind of populate this. But there is no need to do so, because the result which I'm sending back to the front end here actually already has the expanded user object inside of it, since I already do fetch my user here when I find it by ID. Then I add it to my message here. This in this case then is not only the ID but the complete user object, and therefore I already have the complete user object available here. This allows me on the front end now, here in the case where I add a new message, to now simply say result object user first name, and here of course it's result object user underscore ID. And with that, I'm saving all the user data in the front end as well. Let's use the additional data we're now fetching in our message component to now show the edit and delete buttons only if the user is allowed to edit or delete, and to show the right username. To do so, I will go to my message component, and here I already display message username, so this should work automatically. Let's restart the backend server since we changed something there, and then go to our application and reload here. And we see indeed the username of the user who created this. If I'm still logged in, add a new message here, we also see that username. So this already works, but we need to make sure that we only see the buttons we are allowed to press. So that if I now log out and log in with the other user, I only see the buttons on this first message, but not on the second one here. To implement this method, I will add a new method to my message component TypeScript code. I'll name it belongs to user because this is what I want to check here. If this message belongs to the currently logged in user. I can determine this by simply returning local storage get item user ID. Remember, we're also storing the user ID in the local storage when authenticating a user here. So if this item here, if this user ID stored in the local storage equals the user ID of our message object. Now, of course, since we're in JavaScript on the front end, we can always modify this on our own. So you might be able to hack this and see these buttons on a message you didn't create. But guess what? That doesn't matter. We're checking it on the backend anyways. And this is important. You always need to check on the backend because on the front end, people are able to change your code. JavaScript isn't secured against user changes. So you need to make sure to always do the important validation on the backend. I only implement this check here on the front end to provide a better user experience. If a user wants to hack this and don't have the better experience, therefore, be my guest, do it. The important validation happens on the backend. This is only to provide a better user experience. So this belongs to user method here can now be used in the message component HTML code to check if this button or if these buttons here should actually be shown. So here I can say ngIf, and I only want to show them if belongs to user returns true. So if this does equal, otherwise I don't want to show these buttons. So with this, let's recompile it and reload. And now you see I only see the buttons on this message, which if we open the console, I may delete. But I don't see it on the other message which wasn't created by me. So let me create a new message. And now I will log in with the other user again. And now you see it changed. Now I only see the buttons here and I am able to change it. And of course would also be able to delete it, but I can't click it on the second message, which is the behavior I wanted to add.